get it together. Okay, get that and that. Excellent. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going long today on the Louis B. Free Radio Show, Brain Food from the Heartland. Did I ID? No, I didn't this hour. Copyright Be Free Radio Limited 2022, produced by the lovely Ms. Bunnyface in cooperation with White Rabbit Productions. I've been looking so for. I'm so nervous with you and so rattled by you.
Your grammar is all askew.
It is askew, as generally in my brain. Jim Meskimen is my guest. Let me just go there. Good morning, or good morning to you. Good afternoon up to us.
Yes, good morning to you, and good afternoon to anyone, and good evening to our friends in England.
Yes, that's right. There's so many things I was telling you off here. So many things that I want to talk with you about. And the amazing things that you've done and continue to do. But I'll ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, Jim, if you would.
Well, okay. I'm basically I describe myself as an artist, which not to be fancy, but just that the things that I do are all kind of in the field of performance or writing or voiceover or drawing and painting. And my company is called Meskimen Applied Silliness. So we do have a kind of a movement towards the light and the whimsical and the silly. But I also am a dramatic actor, and I fancy myself an actor in the footsteps of my famous mom, Marion Ross, who is well known for playing Marion Cunningham on Happy Days, but is actually a much broader performer than that. And spent much of her career doing very dramatic stuff, from Eugene O'Neill to Tennessee Williams and other greats like that. So, I'm a working actor, fortunate to be the son of another working actress who became an icon. I don't have any expectations that I will reach that kind of height, but I've been lucky enough to live a very happy life. I have a lovely family, lovely wife and daughter. And I have a productive, healthy, and amusing existence, which is, I think, worth a lot, and I'm very, very grateful for it.
Well, again, I'm grateful to have you. I've got to mention, because again, as I say, and my audience knows, I'm disorganized, I'm chaotic. Even though I write down questions, I never stick to them because the answer to the question is going to lead to something else. I've got to mention your animated paintings that on YouTube. They're so powerful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a new thing for me. I learned how to do digital painting a few years ago, but I don't do it professionally. I just do it for my own amusement. I did sell a number of them, but I recently for Christmas got a new iPad, which I requested, and my wife bought me one. And there's a program called Procreate where you can draw and paint on your iPad directly. And then I realized it's got this little function where you can play back all the strokes that you've made. So it basically shows the genesis of the painting all the way to its completion in a kind of a continuous video. And I thought, oh, that's, I want to create some things that make use of that and show a progression. It's kind of like a poor man's animation. But I set music to it, and you've seen some of them. I haven't done a whole lot of them, but I put them on YouTube and TikTok. And it's fun. For me, working with the aesthetics is a great way to spend time. If I'm on a plane or I'm waiting around on a set, there's so much waiting in show business. It's just toxic after a while. You got to do something. This is why some people develop some pretty unhealthy habits. I decided I'm going to get an iPad. I'm going to make something, aesthetic.
A healthy habit, a productive habit, if you will.
Yeah.
Jim Meskimen, again, I'm kind of going from the back to, or the wrong way, but I do want to make sure I get some of these things in, like the animated paintings, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
The working actor method at jimworkingactor.com. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was approached by a company and they said, hey, there's all these online courses being made and you've been a working actor all these years, and I think a lot of people would be interested. And I went, okay. And so I put together eventually, it was pretty difficult to do. I put together a series of videos where I talk about all this basic steps and the fundamental things that I do on a weekly basis and have done for decades to keep working as an actor. Because that's, I think most actors when they're starting out are very concentrated on the performance, doing a bunch of accents or memorizing beautiful speeches or all the different bits of tradecraft that go into being a performer. And that is a very important hunk of the material that one has to master. But then there's this other part, which is the administration part and keeping things growing. And many actors, I think that I've met have kind of fallen short in the area of promotion, marketing, because it's difficult. You're marketing yourself, you're promoting yourself, and most people aren't that comfortable with that. And they figure, well, I'll get a manager, I'll get an agent, and they will do that. Or I'll get so famous that a whole big company will do that. And that does happen to people. But in the main, for actors like us who are just kind of, hardworking, well-meaning, wonderful, brilliant actors, we have to, at least in the beginning, learn how to drive that ourselves. And so I have paid attention over the years and didn't really, it wasn't willy-nilly with me. I actually was very determined and very organized about that aspect of my life. And so I have created these videos where I describe the different things that I do and that I have done that are successful and that would work for anybody in keeping a career going, any kind of artistic career. I think it would work really for if you're a writer or a singer or a performer of any kind. So I talk about fundamentals that I've found to be tried and true and put them together in a series of videos. And so people can check it out and see if it's something that interests you at jimworkingactor.com.
That's jimworkingactor.com. We've, of course, got links up at louisfreeshow.com, Louis B. Free, WFMJ, etc. Just go to jimworkingactor.com.
Louis be free, for God's sake, be free.
Let's get thank you for that.
Free from that wall. It looks a little bit like you've been visited by Hurricane Ian already.
Oh God, that's a riot.
Free field is very colorful.
Oh God, Ian, by the way, hope everybody in Florida is doing well and holding on.
Not to jest. Yeah.
When you do the voices, and again, that there's videos up that are just incredible, and how you switch from one to the other. I mean, whether we want to go to Phil Donahue or tell me about that. How did you develop that ability to do that?
Yeah, impressions have been part of my just sort of my toolkit for a long time, and I didn't really consider it terribly special because I grew up in a kind of a showbiz family, and it wasn't that everybody did voices, but everybody did accents in my family. Everybody horsed around and tried different things. And when I was a kid, it was just amusing and to make my friends laugh and stuff like that, and do the Happy Days guys when I was growing up, and and I would see people like Rich Little, the great Rich Little, who's still performing today.
Yeah,
I would see him on television, and I would gobble it up like everybody else. I just like, oh my God, this is so great. But I never had any idea that, well, maybe that's a career path for me. Maybe I ought to really hunker down and figure out how to do that. I never ever had that thought until much, much later, when I noticed that whenever I did some project or some application of impressions, whether it be a live show or an improv show or something with my improv company in New York when I was there, something would kind of percolate and things would people would notice me, and things would start to get a little bit better. And then, after years of that, it was just kind of like, oh, hey, idiot, do impressions if you want things to, start to get active again. So I began to really focus on it over the last 20 years or so, and really, really develop it and work it, and it's a big part of my life now. And I dare say it's probably the way that these days I mostly make a living.
because I do, for example, Colonel Sanders, which is an impression of a guy that actually existed, as you probably realize, Harlan Sanders. It was a living, breathing person who started at Kentucky Fried Chicken.
So I've been doing those radio and TV commercials for about 6 years. I've been doing his voice. I don't appear on camera. Sometimes they have comedians or other celebrities appear on camera, but I've been doing the voice when you don't see the Colonel or you only see the Colonel's hands or a bucket. That's generally me doing the voiceover. So that's been very nice for us as a kind of a steady gig. And then I do
I do Robin Williams occasionally for Disney still. And I've been doing that for about, I don't know, 10 years maybe for different projects. And unfortunately now, of course, it's very, very important to have a person who can do Robin Williams because he's not in the game anymore. And I do Ultron, which is basically an impression. And so a lot of my work, and you mentioned Phil Donahue. I recently played Phil Donahue on camera for a show called Welcome to Chippendales, which is coming out in November. And there's a scene where Phil Donahue is introducing the Chippendales guys, and it's kind of a big break for them, So I auditioned, and I'm doing my Phil Donahue right now. And this is, outside of wearing the glasses and the wig,
Yeah.
And the paunch, had a little artificial paunch on me. That was the deal. So, I think impressions are should be and probably are a part of every successful actor's toolkit. Whether they are known as an impressionist or not is something else. But if you take, for example, Jamie Foxx.
Interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Jamie Foxx played Ray Charles beautifully and authentically and honorably. He really brought a lot of honor to that gentleman. So and Kenneth Branagh has basically impersonated people sometimes. And I just think it's part of it's just being an actor on a very well-known kind of channel. It's like if you go in and see a Broadway show and somebody's playing a hobo, that's an old-fashioned word, but
it is. But I know
kind of a
I know it.
or you know what I mean, character. We don't know necessarily who that person might be imitating. He may be evoking someone he knew or someone else he'd seen in another performance. But if you start playing a famous person, like if you go on and watch a Broadway show and somebody's playing Roosevelt or playing Winston Churchill,
then there has to be an aspect, hopefully, of performing with the voice of the person that you're expecting to see.
Like Gary Oldman created his own Winston Churchill, embodiment, impression, whatever you want to call it, for Darkest Hour. So I just think it's an acting tool.
And Geico, of course.
And Geico, yeah. Of course, that was me doing an impression of someone that there are no extant recordings of, George Washington. Right.
So I sort of created it. Actually, it sort of sounds like Phil Donahue when you get right down to it.
That's a lot. When you do that again, you've got to do it. Your creativity for someone where there's no recordings, for someone that there is. I've got to believe there's a lot of work to it. When people hear you and switch from voice to voice, they may say, well, he's just a natural. He's able to do it. I've got to believe there's a lot of work behind that. Or are you just or is there a combination?
Yeah, it's familiarity. It's working it. I always liken it to these guys I know who have just sit down with a guitar and will play for 3 hours, and on a Sunday afternoon. They've got a guitar or some instrument around and they noodle around with it all the time. And they get very familiar with how to make certain effects, play certain chords, do certain rhythms. And they go, hey, that riff from that song, this is how that goes, and they know it's an A, B, A, whatever. They figured that out. I do that with my voice so often every day. I'm mucking around with my voice, whether I'm just listening to the radio as I'm driving along and I'm going, oh, that's an interesting accent. How does that sound? How does that feel? Or, oh, that's one I like this voice, or it's something I have an attraction for. And I'll just kind of try to copy it. And I'm just very practiced at copying. And so I know my capabilities as a voice artist. And most guys in my field do. They're very familiar with how to boom.
Suddenly deepen their voice and become very, like this. And
Or lighten it up tremendously and suddenly change everything completely, make a completely different character.
And they can do it at the drop of the hat because that's their life, sadly.
Sadly, yeah. Wonderfully though, wonderfully and wonderfully entertaining. And again, to be able to do, as you were saying, Robin Williams or Colonel Sanders, who they're both gone, and to be able to study that. And what do I want to say? I hope this doesn't offend anyone. Bring them to life.
bring them to life. It's life.
Life,
Yeah,
that's how
you're
it
bringing life to
sounds to
someone who
me.
isn't around anymore, or you're creating a new life, or whatever. Yeah.
And switching between them, when you do that, you've got to be really sharp to go from one to the other, one impression to the other. And you do it. I mean, there's videos of you doing it extremely quickly. I could see somebody that is good at impressions. Forgive me, I'm rolling on. But they've got to, take a break, and then I'll come back and I'll do this. Or you just roll. The flow is phenomenal.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
had a lot of practice. When I used to do it on stage in my 20s, I was in an improv group called Interplay in New York, and we had a piece that we did every show where I would do a biopic of a famous person, and then the audience would call out different celebrity names of who would be starring in that biopic as, Napoleon or Winston Churchill or, I don't know, Franklin Roosevelt, something like that. And so the fun was, how quickly can I change? And I had the opportunity to drill it on stage in front of people where, there's a little bit of pressure. And I did it so many hundreds of times that I just got really facile with it. I think you develop a kind of a muscle memory, and then you can kind of drop into it real fast. You don't have to worry about it. You're just sort of quick. It's sort of quick, like it happens lightning speed.
The bush is just great. Some of the videos that you've got and doing them again online. I'm having the honor of talking with Jim Meskimen. The Big Door Prize.
Yeah, that's
Apple
a series that's coming out eventually. I believe
soon do you think?
sometime
I'm
this
sorry.
year. I hope so.
This
On
year?
Apple TV, Apple Plus, I guess. Yeah, that's the Big Door Prize. It's based on a book called The Big Door Prize. It does not have, to my knowledge, a door prize in it, but it's a kind of that's a lyric from a part of a lyric from a John Prine song, and that's why it's the title of the book.
I'm
You know
sorry.
that one?
Yes, the
Yeah.
Big Door.
We're the Big Door Prize.
Yeah, about the couple that are. Oh God.
Da, 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 da. Yeah, I'm a big John Prine fan, as I guess you are too. Anyway, but
sorry.
the book has uses as its chapters, I think, a different little lyric from the work of John Prine, his collection, his catalog, but this series is a very charming series from the makers of Schitt's Creek, one of the creators of it. And it stars Chris O'Dowd, the young Irish actor Chris O'Dowd, who's marvelous and funny. You might have seen him in Bridesmaids, or if you're really, really devoted, you might have seen him in the IT Crowd, which is a very funny series that came out of England.
UK,
in the UK, I think in 10 years or so ago. Anyway, charming guy. He's the star of the Big Door Prize. And that's coming out, like I say, maybe November. I actually haven't heard a release date yet. So, but I'm really looking forward to the world seeing that show. It's about this fortune-telling machine that appears suddenly in a small town in a grocery store in the South, and it purports to tell you what your true destiny is. And it, spits out a little card and says, you are a baker. And if you're like the president of a lawnmower factory and you go, baker, and these people all start to kind of figure out, man, maybe that really is my destiny. And it creates a whole lot of chaos and funny comedy and tender things as well. So I'm a character in that world. I can't say too much about what I do in it, but I've been working out to be part of it. So that's the only clue. They requested that I get a little more physically fit, look a little more ripped.
So yeah, when you do something, they're telling you for this role to bulk up,
Yeah.
fit. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what do you mind if I ask, since you said, what do you do?
Oh, well, I've got a trainer, I've got a really good trainer. They hooked me up with somebody who I knew
They
of.
did.
And they started paying for it, and I've continued to pay for it on my own. But
Good for
yeah,
you, right?
I've
It's
never
good
been
for you.
asked to do anything except occasionally I've been asked to get a manicure for an assignment. But in this case, they asked me they said, you're in pretty good shape, but if you wouldn't, not for nothing, if you want to work out, we will sponsor that. So I said, wow, great. And at my age, it's like, wow, this is something I didn't expect to do, but I'm really enjoying it, and I feel very healthy, and I look better.
And for listeners, you got some biceps there.
I got two of them. I got one on either side.
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
all evened out.
yeah. So you're obviously working out. Do you mind if I ask how old you are?
How old I am? I'm 63 now. I just turned 63 in September.
And bulky, how long have you been working out?
All year.
Up like
So
that? Yeah.
it's February, I guess, or January.
It's great
February.
progress. That's great progress.
Thank you. Yeah, I kept pretty fit during the pandemic. I have weights at home, and I was going to the gym, the regular gym, a little bit, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And now with a trainer, it's been really productive and fun. I enjoy it very much.
Yeah. Yeah. If you make it, and again, one of the things, and forgive me for going off on this, but one of the things, and I just entered my 70th year, and I'll talk to younger guys like in their 50s. It's like, so when do you plan on starting exercise? Again, I'm not an exercise freak, but I've got to get my exercise in.
It's important for us old guys to get the cardio in, particularly.
But when I hear guys in their 50s saying, one of these days, well, now, because it gets easier when you get older. I mean, if you've done it for a decade, 2 decades, yeah, you can keep doing it in most cases. But now's the time, right? I'll just leave it like that. Sorry for going off on that. I think people.
No, I think that's an appropriate message for our 50 brethren.
Yeah, that's right. 50s. Get started. Do something. Walk.
Something.
Get a trainer. I like you said.
Something. You got to move your body, or else leave it. There's an expression. Move it or lose it. Definitely. You can see people can lose it. It happens.
This may be a weird question. Well, most of mine probably are weird, Jim Meskimen, but have you ever thought about how many different impressions have you?
Yeah, I mean, people ask that a lot. How many do you do? And I like, well, it sort of changes. It's a number that changes because it grows, it ebbs and flows. Some voices you kind of retire because either you can't perform them anymore, or they become persona non grata. Occasionally a big celebrity disgraces themselves, very rarely, but it happens. And you're like, I don't think I want to put that. I don't want to do that anymore. Something different now. And when Robin passed, it was very tender for a while there, and I didn't have him in my show because it meant something different than it had just a little while before. He represented, and now still does, I think, in with the passage of time, creativity and invention and energy and the silliness and all those wonderful things that he embodied. But for a while there, after his passing, he represented something very, the more the tragic side of things, which I tried to address in a poem that I wrote about his passing and also put on YouTube. And it went viral because I think it resonated with a lot of people about his voice,
website,
what it meant to me. And that's on YouTube.
It's
YouTube, a tribute to Robin Williams. Yeah.
Wow. One of the things when you say that about it too soon, you didn't want to have it in your act like that. I know others don't seem to have that level of thoughtfulness and empathy and consideration and compassion for it being too soon. Where do you think that empathy, that thoughtfulness, I mean, I could come up with a lot of words that blows me away, that you thought, not now, when others seem to, what do I want to say, capitalize on it quickly.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed that myself, but I don't know. I just felt weird. I just was kind of like, gosh, I don't know. I know the effect that I have in real time on audiences. You know, you can kind of sense it, you can kind of feel it. And so it's like, well, am I bringing joy and diversion, or am I bringing a little bit of heartache? And it's fine if you want to bring a heartache, but you should know what your purpose is. And generally speaking, I'm rather more interested in bringing a kind of a release to people rather than I don't know, something more, I don't know, sad, to be honest.
And where do you think that comes from in Jim Meskimen?
Well, I don't think I'm any different than most people. You know, you're trying to make people feel better, you know, particularly if you're a performer, you're trying to energize people or make them have an experience that's pleasant and memorable. You know, I just try to, my goal is anyway, to bring to audiences the kind of joy and positivity and, you know, great feeling and experience that I've gotten from other great performers. Like the other night, we went to see Bonnie Raitt, and Bonnie Raitt is just so tremendous. And I was familiar with her music, but I'd never seen her perform live. And in her live show, and she's nearly 70, or maybe she's 70, I don't know, but still just top of her game. And the message of her song, the way she performs, I felt myself having all kinds of cognitions and great feelings, and like I definitely was a different person when I came out of that concert. So that's the power of aesthetics. It's really kind of hard to enumerate, but it can change you forever. You know, there's certain things, I'm sure, certain performances you've seen that you just never forget. It has that impact on you. So that I flatter myself is what I'm trying to do, particularly with my live show, where I have some control over the content and, you know, the length and so forth. But even, you know, as an actor, I'm trying to be honest and tell a good story. And you know, a good story can lead you to have realizations about life and maybe even, you know, change the way you behave, we hope, for the better.
Jim Meskimen, when you say that, it makes me think of a realization that I had, or whatever. And this was quite a while ago, but I had never thought about it. And with theater, entertaining, comedy, that what that means to the people. And yeah, you go to be entertained, and for that time that you're being entertained, you're not. Everybody's got something going on. I always say that everybody's got some struggle, health-wise, you know, economics, whatever it is. And for that, however long it is, like you say with the concert, you're not thinking about that. You're being, and how important it is for us. How important it is for us to kind of get out of. I don't know, how do I want to say, get out of ourselves for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. And the gift that you give to people for that, I just think is incredible.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
Completely what you're saying. I think about my late friend Chick Corea, the jazz pianist.
I love Chick Corea.
Whose stated goal for his band, at least the electric band, was to ease the effect of time on an audience. Because people, it takes them out of the time stream. And if you've ever like been to a Chick Corea concert or any musician that you admire, you realize time just doesn't exist, goes away, and you go, oh my God, they're already done. Oh my God, it's like any pleasant experience. It just goes by very, very quickly.
I'm a Chick Corea fan. Do you mind talking a little bit more about your relationship with Chick Corea?
Oh man, yeah. It's still, I have to say, it's still a little bit of a weight on my soul, because he was a very special friend, and I admire him so much. For me, it's like, you know, you kind of get into this life. And you think, well, what's the best thing to be? Well, you know, my mom's an actor. Maybe I'll be an actor. Or I like this painter. Maybe I'll be a painter. And it was until very, very late in my life, really too late for this life anyway, where I went, gosh, you know, what Chick Corea does is the best. That is the best because he can travel, or he could travel all over the world and take a room full of people and just knock them sideways with music. Doesn't matter if they speak English or not. See, what I've developed is like this routine where, okay, I'm an impressionist. I can't really go to Russia. I can't really go to Japan. China, it's not going to happen. Because this is the language barrier and also the frame of reference. But Chick's world and any musician's world, really, classical musicians, they transcend language. It's a musical language that nobody needs any indoctrination in. We just get that vibration, and we get those emotions directly without any kind of symbolizing of words. So that, I feel, is like, that is what I admired about Chick, is that he was on a path from the get-go, which was one that just exhilarated audiences no matter where they were. And I had the good fortune he was very kind to me. And we met, I don't know, a long time ago, 20 years ago or so, maybe more.
Sorry.
And kept maintained a friendship, and it was fantastic.
Do you mind if I ask? I got turned on to Chick Corea. I think it was the Return to Forever.
Return to Forever, yeah. Oh, God.
And I just absolutely, it's funny. I was just thinking of a song on one of the Return, and I couldn't remember exactly which album it was on. It was not bothering me. It was, I needed to hear that song. How did you guys meet?
We did a charity performance in Florida years ago. Chick, as you know, is a Scientologist. I'm also a Scientologist, but we came together for a particular event, and we collaborated. Actually, my improv company and I, and Chick created a little charity show for, I forget now, the group in Florida. But, and after that, it was kind of like, he always treated me as a creative equal, which was highly embarrassing to me.
Well,
but he had an interest in comedy as well, and comedians and stand-up, and he grew to insert humor into his performances verbally sometimes, and that wasn't because of me necessarily, but it was because of his underlying interest. So I think what he appreciated about me was that ability to perform in that way and to create that effect. And we had all kinds of plans about collaborating on things. And the only thing we ever did collaborate on, which was great, a couple of times we did a performance together where he would play, obviously. He would accompany me improvisationally as I told an improvisational story. I'd get suggestions from the audience, and we would just launch into it. And there's a couple of times we did that, and it was super exhilarating for me. I mean, you can imagine having Chick Corea lay a bed of music and create an environment around your narrative was like,
wow. But I think the synergy of both of you had to be, for the audience, breathtaking. Are any of those online? Do you know?
No, although I do have a video, and I should probably put it up online now.
Please.
I'll find it. I'll dig it up and put it up.
Please put it online. I would love to see that. I would. What are the current projects? I'm sorry I went off on that, but when you said
not a problem. It's great to remember Chick Corea. And anyone who is not familiar with his music, if you like jazz, check out his improvisational stuff. He improvises so beautifully, and his work with Herbie Hancock improvisationally is outstanding. I've heard them work together. It's like just staggering. Upcoming projects for me are I like the Big Door Prize, very big. I just did an episode of FBI Most Wanted, where I played the criminal du jour, and that was fun.
Recently?
Just last week.
So
New York.
He's on last week, or just you?
No, just shot it. So I don't know when
it'll be on. Okay.
It'll be on. And I've got an episode of Hunters coming out. Also, I think sometime this year. That's the Al Pacino starring Nazi hunting show on HBO, and I got to play a nice character in that. And let's see, I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh, there's the Chippendales thing coming out. And oh, I'm also working on a show called American Auto, which is a new comedy on NBC. And I play the CEO of a big auto company. And I started doing that in season 1, and I'm back for season 2. So I'm going to start that again
Well, I've got
pretty
to find
shortly.
that.
Yeah, and that's from the makers of Superstore.
Oh,
So
oh,
that
oh,
kind of,
I like that. Yeah.
it's got a Parks and Recreation vibe. I was on that show for a while, and that was fun. And then voiceover wise, I'm always I'm doing audiobooks every now and then. So I did a really interesting audiobook called The Academy and the Award about the group that founded the Academy Awards, the Motion Picture Association of America. And it's an incredible story. I really enjoyed reading it. It was really fantastic. So that'll be coming out, I think, later this month.
Well, I was going to ask, what do you do in your spare time? There is no spare
Yeah,
time, right?
there's no real spare time. I'm renovating my kitchen in my spare time.
You're kidding. Oh,
Well,
God.
my wife and I, we've got the contractors and the workmen in the house right now. That's why I'm actually at my daughter's house right now, because our house is a mess.
Yeah, I'm maybe I should, well, I'm going to say there's no filter between my brain and my mouth. I'm glad you weren't actually doing the work yourself, because it would be so multi. It's like, so you do that and the painting and the.
I know, that would be so irritating. Yeah, no, I
Well,
hate people.
Right? It's like, but the advantage of not being able to fix things, because I know guys that they can fix the whatever. And if you're someone like myself that is better at breaking things than fixing, when you fix something small, you get so much credit for it. The guts of a toilet, simple.
Yeah.
Even though I
flashlight battery changing. Yeah, that's about my speed.
But it's like you get so much credit for it, when these other guys, I don't think, or ladies, when they, they build a house or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, okay, you build houses. But I'm talking with Jim Meskimen. What Gaslit? Let's talk a little bit more about.
Oh, Gaslit. Yes, Gaslit is currently on Stars, and it's a show about Watergate and Martha Mitchell and her experiences there. A lot about John Dean as well. And I got to play Senator Edward Gurney, who had a relationship with John Mitchell, and also grilled Martha Mitchell in the Senate. And so I worked with Sean Penn, who's the star of the show, along with Julia Roberts, and I worked with her as well. So that's been out for a little while. It's a very interesting show. I enjoyed working with those two actors very much. That was really an experience. And again, a dramatic role. I play a kind of a underhanded politician, and I enjoyed it very much. It was fun. Now I had to create that. Now that is an existing character. That is a person that existed. However, he was not one of the more exposed or well-known characters of the Watergate era, which I vaguely remember. And I went back into my research. I could find very little footage of Senator Gurney, but a little bit, and I determined that he had a little bit of a Southern accent, but it was a kind of a hybrid accent, because he'd also been born in lived in upstate New York, and traveled down to Florida for his political career. So I had to kind of construct something which is probably not 100% accurate, but at least for me, captured a little bit of the quality of that individual. And it's basically a Joseph Cotton imitation.
But when you do, Jim Meskimen, when you do that, like you were saying before about doing George Washington, well, obviously there's no audio of George Washington, but you kind of get into it and create it. So you had to add, because it was so little. Gurney, you had to develop.
Yeah, I had to extrapolate something and made a choice, and they liked it. So that's why they hired me, I guess. And I got to work with a terrific director, Marion Ross, who is an actor himself, and he's directed quite a few features and series, and he's just wonderful to work with. And he gave us a lot of leeway. And Sean Penn and I spent 2 days with Sean Penn, so we're not bosom buddies, but I enjoyed it very much. I felt very privileged to work with him, and he let Sean and I improvise, and that was fun. Yeah, it was a great experience. I have to say, it was really a highlight of the last couple of years.
When you improvise, again, the director's the director, but hopefully they would give you because you're in character, you become that character.
Mhm.
And hopefully most would say, yeah, because you're the character. I don't know if I'm making sense. So
Yeah,
if you improvise, is that generally accepted? Generally, I know I'm speaking generalities, but when you do that, most directors say, yeah, that's cool.
It depends. It really depends. There's certain productions that really require you stick to the exact script.
I
I've
understand.
worked mostly with those, but in the world of comedy, actually, like Parks and Recreation, for example, they encourage improvisation. So even though you may have to cover the script as written, they'll sometimes say, all right, now let's do one that's a little freer. And then you have you can start to invent things and throw things in and be a little less cautious about the lines. And if you have a kind of a crazy idea, you just sort of spit it out. It's like, what's going to happen? They're just going to delete it anyway if they don't like it. So
Right. It's not live.
there's no downside to it. And sometimes you wind up with something that's pretty wonderful. And there's a liveliness and spontaneity to it that is harder to capture when it's scripted.
Yeah, I'll bet that sounds very, very interesting doing things like that. I would think that would be, and especially with your personality and your comedic background and everything coming together. I would think.
Thanks.
Cool.
I don't know if you've seen these on my YouTube channel, but I do a series among the many little series of projects I do on YouTube. I do a series of calls from the archives of Colonel Sanders, phone conversations between Colonel Sanders and other celebrities, and famous people, from Albert Einstein to Salvador Dali to John Lennon. And I make a phone conversation, and I go into the booth and I improvise the whole thing, and then I cut it together so that it sounds like they're actually talking to one another. And it tickles me every time because it creates the illusion of these two distinct individuals having an inappropriate conversation. So those are on my YouTube channel, archival. I think they're called the Lost Colonel Sanders tapes.
I got to check that out. That sounds
Yeah,
great.
I think you'd like them a lot.
When you're doing that, I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, Jim Meskimen, but when you do that, and you've done that with other people that do impressions where you just flow and go back and forth.
Right.
What's
Yeah,
that?
just go back and I'll meet Colonel Sanders and say, what exactly are you interested in? I understand you got that TV program of yours. Yes, I play Walter White on Breaking Bad, and what is it exactly? Well, that sounds like a pretty interesting show. Is it about compound fractures? No. Yes.
Oh God, that's all right. Websites, we've got some links up. Do you want to mention?
Yeah, again, jimworkingactor.com for those online courses. My YouTube channel is Jimpressions, and I'm on Instagram as Jimpressions also. I'm on TikTok too. You can look me up. I'm putting a lot of stuff on TikTok these days because that's where the kids are.
Yeah.
And some of the old folks too.
I'm in awe of the fact that you, albeit much younger than I am, are able to do the TikTok. I know people would come to me and say, Louis, man, this was years ago. You got to get on Snapchat. Snapchat's a new thing. So I got all excited. I downloaded the app to my phone. 2 years later, I realized I never even opened it. And it's just, again, the explanation as an old age is like, oh God, I don't know how I could learn to do the TikTok. You did. And you adapt to that. That blows me away.
I got some help, and we had some early success, so that buoys you. We got to 100,000 followers pretty fast. So, and every now and then I just stick the camera on my mom and ask her to say something, and like I did yesterday, and people love to see my mom. So that's she really should have her own TikTok channel, but she's not good with phones.
Yeah. Are you posting? That's on TikTok.
Yeah.
Your mom.
Yeah.
A couple people. Let me just ask you really very quickly. Have asked, what was it like when Happy Days, when Marion Ross was doing Happy Days, and for you?
Well, that's like a 12-year period. So, and I was a teenager, becoming, I think I was 19 or 20 when it ended. So it's a very long and formative period of my life. So it had its ups and downs, but to be, somehow, in the environment of this incredibly successful show for the time, back when there were 3 television channels and nothing else.
I remember.
And having, the great thing about it is that out of that has come, the fondness for my mom that makes people, whenever I tell people who my mom is, they usually say, "Oh, I love your mom," which is really sweet,
Yeah.
and that's a lovely thing. And also I got to observe how a professional manages the day-to-day of being a television actress, working actor. And that's why I put that all that information in my course at jimworkingactor.com.
That's beautiful. I'm really glad you shared that. As you say that, Jim Meskimen, I'm thinking, who wouldn't say that about your mom?
Yeah.
I'm serious. I
Some
mean, that's what I
psychopath.
would
It's
say.
a good way
I love
to it's a
mom.
good way to find out if the person's a psychopath or not. If they go, "Oh, your mom."
You know
Ah,
what, that's
God,
the
I never
test.
got that,
That's the test. That's
That's
the
the
test. The
test.
court system, everybody, they can not
Yeah.
have to worry about the assessments anymore. They can do so
That's
one
right.
question assessment. Oh God, that's great.
Yeah, could you
Jim
put your
Meskimen.
hand on the Bible and tell us how you feel about Marion Ross?
And that will determine it. That's brilliant because I don't know anyone. I don't know of anyone that didn't love your mom and that.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
that's
I'll
wonderful.
pass that along.
Please. What an honor to have you on the Louis B. Free radio show, Brain Food from the Heartland, Jim Meskimen. I could talk to you for hours. I wouldn't make you suffer me. Wouldn't ask you to suffer me for hours.
Well,
But
let's do it again. We got lots of stuff.
Oh God, I would be honored to. And again, I just want to say very quickly that that for you, I never know, and I've said this before, I never know. I could really love and the work, an author, a musician, whatever, I can really love their work. And then when I have the opportunity to speak with them, they may be very arrogant. They may be, I still can enjoy, well, can't always with some enjoy the work. And that's very, very tiny percentage, but it's almost like, and I'm thinking of one, I'm certainly not going to mention it. I thought, oh God, I really, I'm sorry I had him on the show because it gave me you are so warm with all your successes, so warm, and it's just so genuine, so authentic. I'm grateful.
Thank you. Those are really nice words, Louis. Thank you.
They're from my heart. They're from my heart. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got the links. So what an incredible guy, Jim Meskimen. I had no idea. I know this is going to sound terrible. He'd be